Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Composed Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gaffney. Today's episode is a wonderful conversation with Jessi Laurence. She is an artist. We actually have very parallel lives. We're about the same age. We've both got a couple of kids. And we talk about that in the episode, but she's an artist in New Hampshire and she works with oil paint, more of a realistic painter. And I really like her style. I say that many times in the episode, but I really appreciate her use of brushwork and the tonal quality of her paintings. I appreciate her really successful use of direct light and successful shadows. I don't know. We go all into it in the episode. Without further ado, welcome Jessi Laurence. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me.
Of course, I'm excited.
I'm happy to have you here. I've been following you for a long time. I told you before we started recording that I'm a fan of your work. I really, when you post your progress, when you post your stories, I'm pausing, holding onto the screen and then looking at the brush marks that you make.
Aww.
And I just really, really liked it. It's just unique and it's precious and it leans toward realism. If anybody's not familiar with Jessi's work, please go follow her because the work is tonally realistic. You know, you really capture the tones of the setting, the room, the landscape, things like that. Tonally, it's so soft. It's just beautiful work. And then the brush work too. I'll let you talk eventually, but the brush work is
I'm good listening. It's fine.
It's a bit, and then I'm complimenting you, so take it. The brush work it's really great. The way you build the brush strokes and you let them live as a mark, I really appreciate, and I've learned a lot from that. Is that the way you've always painted, or have you kind of developed this style?
Absolutely not. I feel like every year I look at my paintings from the year before and I'm like, who made this? Because it wasn't me, you know? I feel like I had a pretty traditional journey as far as art. I started when I was young. Maybe that's not traditional, but I took art classes from a young age, and I took just the classical type of lessons, you know, learning form, learning how to draw, very realistic. So everything was hyper-realism because that's kind of, I feel like, especially when you're first getting into art, that's how people gauge if you're good or not by how realistic it is. And that's especially people who don't know art, that's how they know if it's good, because if it's not a language they're used to speaking, it's conceptually they're not thinking about that. So I feel like realism is what I focused on, and I was, painstakingly drawing every little line into everything, shading for hours. And I think that's really important to learn. But once you get all of those tools and you say, okay, I can paint realistically, now what? It gets, I don't want to say boring. I feel like I'm tooting my own horn, but you kind of want to then use those tools and then kind of go off in a different direction. Like I want it to look like I can paint realistically, but I want it to be more interesting than that, I guess. So really what I've been working on, especially since college, I feel like when I went to art school, I just realized how many talented people there are just like me, it was very humbling. And I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get myself together and like figure out what I'm gonna do. Cause like all these people are, out there also trying to be artists, and it was really inspiring. Yeah. And anyway, I did not start out that way. I feel like it's a constant struggle to fight being realistic, I guess. And I have no issue with realism, but it's not what I'm interested in it's not what I want my work to look like, but I feel like I'm always like fighting against myself to be like, you don't need to tell them every single thing in the painting, like pick the most interesting parts and show those. I feel like less is more. And that's what I find most exciting when I look at art is the spots where I'm not really sure what's going on, or it's like there's a suggestion of something and I know what it is, but they didn't have to draw the entire outline of it to tell me like, this is a vase, this is a flower, and just kind of bouncing around and discovering things like that in a painting is what I like when I look at a different painting. So that's what I've been trying to do in my own work. But making decisions like that in live painting especially is hard because you don't have the time to sit there and be like, I wonder, what I should throw in and what I shouldn't. So
I agree. I think trying to, first of all, when you're working on a skill or when you're learning how to draw or learning how to paint, you want to be able to copy, like replicate. You want to be able to see truly what's in front of you and then render that in whatever medium and make it recognizable or lifelike or representational, whatever you want to call it. And that you have to learn like the rules of painting and learn the rules of working with the medium that you choose. And you use oil paints, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. And so, I remember watching your work and I'm like, look at that when I was working with acrylics and now I use oils, but I was like, I was hesitant to use oils, but I'm like, look at these talented painters and they're bringing their oil paints out and I bet they're loving it. Like just the process of creating on the fly with oil paint. Have you ever used acrylic paint?
Oh yeah. Well, I learned with acrylic, especially when I was young. I mean, oils are expensive. So I don't think I started using them till late high school. And the second I used it, I was like,
done.
I'm good. I'm good with the acrylics. But I did learn in acrylics, but it's crazy how fast you forget how to do things because it is so different. Just everything, the process of acrylics. I did my very first live painting in acrylics because it was the typical, I didn't even know what live painting was. Someone asked me to do it and I was like, that's a thing? Sure, I'll do that. So I'm like looking up what it is. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, these people are doing acrylic. I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. And I hated it. It was awful. Yeah. I mean, it was fine. I enjoyed it, but I felt like it was such a struggle and I felt like I was a beginner, which is not a good feeling when you're in public.
Oh God, no.
Painting,
you need every ounce of confidence you can muster.
Yes. And I just felt like I was just fighting the whole time. And I was like, do I need to be doing this? And then I found, I think it was Laura,
Switek, yeah.
Because I was kind of like looking up other painters to kind of figure out what it was. And I was like, she's using oils. And that kind of like gave me permission. I then didn't do a live painting for like 3 or 4 years. So it didn't really matter. But when I went back to it, I was like, the only way I'm doing this is in oils because I just feel like it's a disservice. Like I just was so much worse at acrylics. So kudos to you I watched all these acrylic painters and I'm like, man, I guess I just forgot how to do it because you guys make it look so easy. But yeah.
I know now that I work with oils, I'm like, oh wow. Like if I went back to acrylics, I would feel like my hands were, or like one hand was tied behind my back just because of the blend. Really, it's the drying time. But I did it, but I used golden opens, which are really slow drying. So I feel like that was kind of a hack, like a middle ground.
See, I didn't even know that.
And
It's
I
been so
discovered
long
those.
since I've used acrylics.
Yeah. So they made
That's
this
good to
whole
know.
thing.
I didn't know there was slow drying acrylics.
There is a slow drying acrylic
helpful.
brand, and then and I use those. I taught this online course that I made. It's like, y'all need to try these slow drying acrylics. And then I use those. I started swapping out colors on my palette, and like one at a time. Like maybe I'll just do the greens. We'll try that, slow the drying time for like trees, whatever. And then I switched out almost every color on my palette with the golden open. And then I was also using slow drying medium for acrylics. And I was like, how can I make this work the way that I love the oils in the studio, which is, you've got endless drying time, blendability and all that. And then I actually, the very last painting I did in acrylics was an outdoor painting in Branson, Missouri. And the wind was kicking and everything was drying too fast. And I was wanting to go and do like these florals, and I wasn't able to really pack in the color and layer. And I remember thinking, that's it. I'm done. I've been doing this for like 9 years, and I can't. It's so aggravating. I know oils would never do this to me.
They wouldn't.
No. Yeah. So I switched, and there's like a learning curve with that too, because oils are you have to understand how to layer and stuff. I wanted to ask, when you did the next one, so you did your first one in acrylic because you felt like you had to, and then you did 3 or 4 years later, did you get a similar, tell us that story? How did you like get back on the bandwagon? How'd you get that next job? And what was that like?
I'm trying to remember when my first live painting was. I did one, it was like isolated. It was a friend that I had waitressed with in college, and she was like, hey, you paint.
Yeah.
I mean, she gave me this amazing opportunity, but she was like, the artist that I want is too expensive. Would you do this for, I don't know, however much? And I was like, well, how much, is she charging? And I think she said like 2,000 something. And I was like, I'll do it for $1,000. And that was like winning the lottery for me. No one's ever paid me that much money like that quickly for art. So I was like, here we go. And I did it. But I had a full-time job as a faux finisher. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do know what that is. I didn't know what you did. But it is like a niche job.
Yeah,
what is faux finishing?
So I used to live in Maryland, so we would travel around. It was definitely dealing mostly with like the 1%. In DC and Virginia and Maryland, we would go to people's houses and create high-end finishes on their walls. So it was a lot of like interior design type stuff. Or like if a child ruined their kitchen table and they had like a huge part missing from this expensive wooden table, I would go in and like paint that spot to look exactly like the rest of the table, like that type thing. So it was a lot of odd jobs. We also made custom wallpaper and stuff like that. But I was traveling around. The traffic there is absolutely terrible near DC.
Absolutely
so I was traveling.
Not. Crazy.
It's like 2 hours both ways, plus like a full work day. So I was trying to, and this is when I was, how old was I? Like 26, 27, or 25. I was 25, 23, 25. I had that for a few years, and I was teaching as a paint and sip. I worked for a place called Muse Paint Bar. So I taught at night. I taught painting after that.
Oh my God, that's so many jobs.
I loved it, but like I like working. Yeah. And I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. My husband was my boyfriend, so I had him, but he was working too. But yeah, it was crazy. So I feel like I had put art on the back burner a lot, mostly because I had convinced myself that there was no way I was going to be able to just make a living selling my stuff or just doing fine art. That seemed very far-fetched to me. And I feel like, especially on social media, art was not as big of a deal back then. Like people weren't using it. Maybe I just wasn't following the right people, but yeah, it felt a little bit impossible. So I kind of let go of that. And I was like, well, I have this faux finishing thing, which is kind of artsy. And I'm teaching like wine and paint night, which is kind of artsy. And, you know, someday, maybe when I'm like 80, I'll sit in my studio all day and paint landscapes and someone will buy them. But, and then that live painting kind of made me feel like, oh, this is like a lucrative thing I could do. But then I think I very shortly after that got married. We had our kid, or I was pregnant within the first year of our marriage, and then I had our first kid when I was 27. So then I was busy with that. But then I feel like kids kind of made things happen for me because I wasn't making a ton of money, and daycare is expensive. So we sat down and my husband, we had been like, I should go back to work just so that we can have more money. But I was like, it's not really worth it because I wouldn't be making that much more. And I'd rather stay in with my kids. I didn't really want to go back to work. So my husband very kindly was like, all right, well, I was like, maybe I should just give this painting thing another shot. And I took this business course, like for artists, which I just saw was canceled, or they
like closed the doors.
I don't know what the word is. Yeah. It was called the Studio Source, and it's basically just.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Have you heard of it?
With Ali D'Attilio?
It changed my life because it gave me it was a business course, but it was only awesome. For artists. So I knew that I would be getting what I needed from it. And it just kind of gave me the confidence to get things going. And I'm not very good at promoting myself or being a social media presence. So it kind of forced me and it gave me like a blueprint to do that. I still don't really enjoy posting, but it definitely works and it definitely helps.
You hate to deny it.
Yeah, I've grown to like it. I'm doing my best, but yeah, I started doing that mostly just to sell my own work. And for a while I was doing that. And then I was like, you know what? I think I was pregnant with my son, who I did the classic 2 under 2 situation. So that was a little crazy. It was basically the March before, it was like a week or two before COVID and everything shut down. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for this live painting thing. And so I committed to a whole year. Yes. I committed financially to a full year of wedding wire because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to go on wedding wire and hopefully get somebody to hire me. And then a few weeks later, it's like no one was getting married, but I was stuck paying for a year of wedding wire and no one was getting married. So I just kind of gave up. I was like, nothing's going to happen. And then I think it was almost a full year later, I was about to cancel it because it had been a full year. Nothing had happened. The COVID was starting to get better. And people started getting married again. It was like a boom of weddings. And all of a sudden in one day I got I wasn't even promoting it. I wasn't doing anything. And I booked 3 or 4 weddings, which was kind of just blew me away. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this now. Wow. My son was 3 months. No, I think he might've been a month and a half old.
Wow.
So I was like, this is the worst timing.
Yeah.
On the planet.
Oh yeah.
So I did the whole, nursing or pumping and, just trying to get through it, get work done. I was still trying to do my personal work and live paintings and everything like that. But I feel like once I got those couple after COVID, it just kind of word of mouth did its job. And here I am 3 years later.
And you have a fantastic reputation and your style is desirable. I mean, the trifecta, girl.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I have changed a significant amount since I started. I feel like I didn't really know what live painting was in the way of all the live paintings I saw were very gestural and very fast. And I felt like I was kind of trapped into finishing on that day. And I was like, oh, it's supposed to feel like a little unfit, but I just feel like I felt so uneasy every time, locking myself into it has to be done. Because I used to charge extra for studio time, basically. You could get it finished the day of, and that was that. And, it was more fun. I still kind of liked it. I love unfinished paintings, but I don't know, that might be lost on somebody who's not into painting.
How many times do I message you on Instagram, leave it like this?
I know. I'm like, let's just keep it like this.
Yeah.
Half the faces are missing, but it looks pretty cool. Yeah. So I used to charge extra for studio time. So I was like, I can't work on this more in the studio because I'm charging people for that time. So I'd have to, that's not really like fair. But then I always just had this weird feeling like, I don't want, this feels unfinished. I don't want to give it to somebody and put my name on it. So eventually I realized, oh, there are people out there that aren't finishing their paintings, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And so after I realized I could do that, I feel like my paintings got a lot better and I was a lot happier with them, just because, I mean, you never know how it's going to go the day of. And I just feel like sometimes you really don't get enough done. Or you don't make the right decisions every time. And then it's nice to go home and rethink it.
Do you feel like the process, like your process of creating a painting at a wedding, is more enjoyable now that you know, like, oh, it's okay. No matter what happens, it's okay because I'm going to bring it home. Has that pressure gone down?
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel a ton of pressure, which is surprising for me to say.
Must be nice.
I think, no. I feel pressure.
Sure.
But I think, I don't know if it's from art school or all the different jobs I've had where I've been in situations where, I've failed publicly, but I just don't really care anymore if people are disappointed. Like, I know that I'm going to make a good painting. I don't know how much people are going to be wowed every step of the way, but, and like, obviously I want people to be impressed. Like, that's kind of part of wedding painting, and you want people to be engaged and you want the couple to be excited. That's mostly my goal by the end of the night. But I'm never like, oh my gosh, this is never going to work out. So it's like, I'm going to make it work out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it to you if I don't like it.
And that's a great attitude to have. It means a lot to hear, for everybody listening, it means a lot to hear that, there's not like one way to do this job. There's not, you have to use acrylics. You have, it's industry standard to finish at the end of the night. Some people try to, but you feel better about the paintings that you're sending off when you feel like they're done. And I try to, just for me, I used to do that and take it home and spend forever, but then I was not happy with the result because I was tightening it up so much. And so I was liking the looser, not like unfinished, but definitely intentionally detailed areas and intentionally more painterly areas. And I feel like when I bring a painting home, I get too into it. I paint too closely, and I take my time, and so that's why I try to finish at night. But that doesn't mean that by the end of the night. But that doesn't mean that you have to. And so it's good to hear for people who are like, "What am I supposed to do? What's acceptable? What are people expecting?" And then to tell your clients, "Hey, this is how I work, and you want me to work this way because it's going to be better if you let me work this way." Do you give your client, how much leeway, how much authority in decision making do you give your clients leading up to the wedding? What's in their control, and then when do you take the baton?
I kind of feed off of what their energy is. I feel like more often than not, people have pretty specific ideas about what they want. But I feel like it varies between, I don't know if I've ever gotten a painting where they were like, just do whatever you want. That would be cool. But they at the very least are like, I want the ceremony or I want the reception. And I could pick a moment from there. And then some people know, frame by frame exactly what they want for their painting. So I try to meet them in the middle. I get nervous about telling people not to. Sometimes I don't love the ideas or I'm like, it's hard to explain something look nice in a photo, but it's not going to look nice in a painting.
Mm-hmm.
Or just because my style is very realistic, I just feel like some things that might work for a more illustrative painter won't work for me, just because it'll look kind of silly if I'm trying to add something that just isn't going to fit into the painting. Like maybe then I'm just not the right artist for the vision. But so I try to gently, I've done a few times where I just like haven't added in some of the things. They're small things, not like anything major. And then I just send it the picture and I see if they say anything. And more often than not, they're like, we love it. And they don't.
Yeah.
So I just try to omit things and then see if they mention it. So I'm like, this is how I think it should look.
Yeah. And they do trust you. I really appreciate how much they do trust us for the most part. Sometimes they're like, no.
Yes. Oh yeah. I've had a few where I've had to repaint a face like 4 times. And I'm like, well, at this point it's starting to feel very just overworked and tired, but it happens. You know?
One thing that I really love about your work is your crowd work, for lack of a better word, but you do a lot of like ceremony exits with the guests in the pews or the chairs, whatever, next to them, cheering them on. It's very lifelike. It's very life-giving, full of movement, full of joy. You do a really good job with that. Do you enjoy painting guests that are, I guess, less detailed and kind of creating masses around? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like instead of, like 5 people or 5 people or like nobody at all in the chairs, which kind of can seem a little, I've done them all the different ways. Yeah. And so I want to know what your thoughts are on the crowds.
Mm-hmm. When there's no one in the chairs, I'm always like, I don't know if this feels, I mean, it's really up to whatever the couple wants, but yeah, I mean, I feel like my main goal, I mean, going back to when you said that you don't love doing the studio work just because you feel like you make it too polished. Like I also feel that way. It's nice to have the studio time, but it is also crippling. And I feel like I am a bit nerdy about it. Like I want it to be a live painting. Like I want it to feel like I was there. I want it to have elements of, I want it to feel lifelike, but I do like painting the crowds. It is a lot of work. I'm starting to have to, because right now my pricing is based on the sizes mostly, with exception of adding like extra detailed portraits and stuff like that. I charge more if people are like, I want these family members and I want them to look like that. That takes a lot more time. If I don't need to get the likeness of someone, I've kind of just been, like it's part of whatever the vision of the painting is. But because it's so time consuming, I'm like, I might need to start figuring that out price wise. But I do have fun with it. But I mostly have fun with it the day of. I feel like when I'm in a rush, I do my best crowd work because I have no time and I don't think about it. And I think my brain knows, like I know more than I think I do about mixing and like just making quick decisions, and I don't have time to overthink it. So I just start slapping stuff on there. Like there's nothing happening. Up here, it's like a blackout. And I feel like then at the end of the night, I'm like, wow, I love it. And then I go back and I'm like, well, I do need to refine these spots. And then I go too far and I'm like, I've ruined it. So I try to keep as much as I can of the day, like that I did that day, because I just love the like immediacy of all the brush strokes and like quick decision make. I like all the stuff that you can see in there, but it's hard. I get carried away.
For sure. It's so easy too, because you're sitting down, you're comfortable, you have the full palette, all of your brushes. It's not like here's a question. When you're painting live, do you stick to like one brush or like 2 brushes, or do you kind of like hold 5 of them in your hand and you go between, you use a lot of brushes? Do you use, what do you do with the brushes?
What I've learned about myself is that I have no
I love you so much.
No one should ever try to do what I do, because I don't even know what it is. Like I don't have a routine. I don't really like routines, and I can't stick to them ever. Like if you told me there was a face routine where like if I do this every day, I'm going to look 10 years younger. I could not do it. I couldn't. I don't think I could. It's like the second you tell me I have to do it, I really don't want to. So I don't know. One day I have 2 brushes and I'm feeling lazy about it and I just want to do the 2. Yeah. And then sometimes I have 10 in my hand. Same with like toning my background. People are always like, how do you pick your toning of your background? I try to think of like a good reason for what I did, but honestly, it's just a way to like get something on the canvas because a white canvas is a little scary. But I don't put a lot of thought into the color, I probably should. But it's kind of my way of, if you do the same thing over and over again, I feel like it starts to feel a little redundant. Like it's my way of making it exciting. It's like, ooh, another I do the best when I feel like I have problems to solve. So I like put a random color on there and see what happens. And then it gives me kind of a different challenge every time, which might make people nervous. I don't know.
No, you got to do it. It keeps me
more engaged. And the more engaged I am, I feel like the better I do because, you do something enough times. It's like you look for ways to make it interesting for yourself. But
literally, let's talk about that. Yeah. I like to have a thing that I'm working on. I was talking to Olivia Andrus, who's a friend of mine and a member, and she came on the podcast recently, like maybe 3 episodes ago. And she was like, I'm working on big heads because I paint big heads and I need to fix that. And so it's like something she's like thinking about. It's a challenge that she has to do the whole painting, but in terms of like, I'm going to grow in this area. It's like training triceps. Okay, my triceps are looking a little weak. I need to like do this one thing in addition to everything else. So like now I'm working on a more impressionistic crowd that's more like convincing. Yes. And because you can, I don't know, I've been really lazy with it in the past and done like kind of silhouettes. But then it was always either too dark or too warm or I don't know. And so I'm just like, for me, I'm trying to incorporate a lively impressionistic crowd with I don't know, like it feels like there's something happening in the room, and with like light sources that it's like, oh, it's the top of people's heads and there's that ear, and I don't know. So that's something I'm working on right now. Is there anything that you, other than tackling a different color tone toned background each time, is there anything that you're working on right now that you're like, okay, I want to improve in this area?
I guess my main goal is I feel like I've gotten slower. You would think I would get faster. I want to be able to make quicker decisions and more accurate decisions on color and color fields. And it just feels like, especially when the hardest part about oil painting is that you can't really layer when you're live painting too much. So it's not like acrylic where you're like, I'll just paint this whole background in, and then later on, whatever's happening, I'll just throw that on top or I'll change it. But it's a lot harder to change something with oil. And so I try to like leave spots open before I'm really sure what the scene's even going to look like. Because you can only play in so much. And then once everything happens, you're kind of just like, quick, let's make this work with like what I already did.
Yeah.
So I feel like I spend so much time being like, should I put this here? Should I not? Should I add this color in? Especially darker tones, I get nervous adding them in because, again, they're hard to take out. So I do more of like a washy background, but then I'm just like, you know what? I just need to like slap all this in here and hope for the best. It's pretty easy to just like wipe something out. I just feel like I spend so much time mixing colors and thinking about colors when day of, it's like you just need to get the general, like you just don't have the time for that, or I don't. I just feel like I need to be like, this is close enough, and it is what it is. And then that's what the studio's for, to kind of, I almost feel like I need to make a sketchbook or make a study the day of, I think would help me for my process. Maybe just even like a thumbnail of like the true colors that I see so that I can remember them. And then because photos kind of ruin everything
Mm-hmm.
color wise. And it's so hard to remember, especially, a month later when I like finally get to work on the painting. I feel like a lot of that's lost. So I kind of want to just do like small studies before. This feels bold because I don't know if this would cut into my painting time for the actual painting that
Yeah.
I'm making, but I
Yeah.
think it would help me just kind of like get all my ideas out. And I know you do study, well, you do more just do like compositional studies, right? Before
Yeah.
yours.
I do little drawings, and I do end up
Yeah.
sketching something out compositionally on the canvas so that I have the frame work, like I
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't know where, like a chandelier, where it's going to go and how big I have to make it glow or something. And so that's helpful for me. And I do it really fast in a sketchbook too. And then I can do, if you're trying to get how large I want to put the people on the canvas, that's always kind of a question that I ask. Would it, is it a huge ballroom ceiling? And do I need to, based on what I've asked them in the past also, because that's something I'll ask now. I'm like, look, do you want to be this big on the canvas and make it feel like you're in this massive room?
Yeah.
Because that's what you paid for. Some of these venues that I'm painted at, and they're like, we want to feel grand. It's not about it. And that's like their vision. If I would have
Yeah.
asked them, I would have cropped it, or,
Yeah.
it would have been a completely
Yeah.
different painting. And so I
Mm-hmm.
asked that question. And then if they don't have a preference, I'll do one or the other. And I'll put them on this side of the canvas and that side of the canvas. And just kind of, I'll do a bunch of those little, really quick things. And then, what I do for like outdoor settings when I have to relocate, because I
Yeah.
love the challenge of like mixing colors based on what you're seeing and the tones that you're seeing.
Yes.
But when you go inside, all you have is photos or like the lights changing. And so it happens really fast. So I
Mm-hmm.
like to create a color key, but I call it like a hamburger. So I will, on the canvas with everything sketched out, I'll mix the color of the sky. Like if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to watch like this really rough demonstration. And if you're listening, you're not going to get any of this. But let's imagine like a 2x3 rectangle. Okay.
Yeah.
And off to one side, top to bottom, I do a hamburger of colors. I'll do the sky colors, transition colors, maybe whatever is in the very furthest background on the horizon, and then get those like tones right. And then just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like mix them, scribble them in. And if it's wrong, I'll correct it. But it's a faster way all the way down to the bottom to the grass in the foreground, or like a rose or something. I don't know. But it's like the fastest way for me to go through the steps of mixing like 3 colors to make the one perfect color or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
putting it on. And then I can always kind of like match to that. I can refer back to that as opposed to what the iPhone is showing me or the iPad, whatever reference I'm using,
Mm-hmm.
because those contrast that everything is kind of warped, and then you're having to go from
Yeah.
memory. So that's something that is not perfect, but it's
Yes.
just one little like way that I help myself out.
Yes.
I'm all
Yeah. I
about
get
like
so caught up.
tricks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I need to just pick like 3 or 4 colors for the background that's gonna like get the job done and like
Mm-hmm.
tell the story that I need to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And then I end up being like, oh, this one leaf is so pretty, and spend 10 minutes mixing that color. And then I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. I don't have time for this.
So I just
Yeah.
need to be like, this is, yeah, I need to, make a list of importance and be like, we'll pay attention to, tiny grass blades later. I get like caught up in one section of the
Yeah.
painting, and then I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah. I do the
no
same
time
thing.
left. So that's
Yeah.
probably what I'm working on the most. I feel like I keep changing I keep changing what I'm doing like every time,
Mm-hmm.
thinking one of them's going to be like the magic answer of, productivity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe it's just never going to be smooth sailing in that way. But that's also what's kind of fun about it, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
It's nice that it's
Keeps
still a
it interesting.
challenge. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Painting will never not be a challenge. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I completely
Yeah.
agree. Hey, live wedding painters. Have you taken a minute to evaluate your business yet? Have you started to think about next year yet? As this year comes to a close, it's important for each of us to take a moment and reflect. Did you hit the goals you set for yourself? Did you set goals at the beginning of the year at all? Was there any clarity in your vision for your creative business? Or have you just been hanging on for the ride? Now, imagine starting next year with a clear plan, a year where you're building a stellar portfolio and booking dream weddings, showing up with confidence and taking bold steps toward your career goals. That's exactly what my goal setting workbook is here to help you achieve. Created for the members of my online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, the Goal Setting Workbook is more than just a place to jot down ideas. It is your roadmap to success for the year ahead. With guided evaluations, you'll identify your unique personal and professional challenges. You'll address physical and psychological elements that might be holding you back. And you will set clear, achievable goals and map out the steps to reach them so you can turn your vision into reality. This workbook is free to download and print so you can physically write down your goals. It includes tools to help you track your growth and adjust as needed, and will actually help you take vague dreams and turn them into concrete plans, and turn those plans into real success. Next year doesn't have to feel uncertain. The Goal Setting Workbook will help you take charge of your career and step into the new year with purpose and direction. Click the link in the show notes to download your free version of my goal setting workbook and kick 2025 off with clarity. Do you do any commissions, any like portrait studio commissions from photographs or anything, or you just exclusively work from like the live gigs?
Currently I'm just doing live because I feel like that feels like commissions to me already. I did used to do commissions all the time. And then I think just as of this year, I've stopped, mostly because I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to the point where I feel like I could start to pick and choose what I do with my time. I feel like before it was just like anything someone's willing to pay me to do, I'm going to do it. And now I'm like, if this is not bringing me joy, it's like taking time away from me spending time with my kids and or like painting what I want to paint. And it's like, it's hard to rationalize painting what you want to paint, I feel like, because that's the only thing where it's like, there's no definite money in it. It's really just for joy. So like me being like, can you babysit so I can, mess around in the studio? It feels like the hardest thing for me to ask for, but I feel like it's so important for my sanity. So it's like, I just don't have time for everything. So I have the live paintings, and then I have my own work that I have not had time to do yet. But
yeah,
someday,
I was gonna
maybe
ask.
next year is the year. I think.
I know. I have to block time off for that. I have to like put it in my
Yeah.
calendar and then tell my husband, these 3 months, don't talk to me.
Yes.
I really love your original work. I actually bought one of your originals that I love them all, but there was one that you titled like Hazel Field or something, and I was like, for my Hazel, and I bought it.
I'm surprised I didn't make that connection, because I feel like I knew that your daughter's name was Hazel, but I did not think of that.
That's okay.
I'm
sure
glad
you were
enjoyed
like,
it.
cha-ching,
I feel like
package,
my
bye.
small, yes, I feel like my small landscapes are fun. So I want to get back to doing that. I had been doing last year. I was doing mostly still lives, just because I do like working from life and realistically, especially in the winter, which is when I have time to paint for myself. It's cold, and also it's hard to get out and go somewhere interesting to paint. So still lives was the answer to that question. But so I made a bunch of them. I didn't do anything with them. Couldn't decide if they were finished or not, but I had a really great time.
Oh, good. Yes, please show
us. It was fun.
I do. You may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in-house from Lori Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Lori Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.laurieannart.com. That's learn at LaurieAnnEart.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later. I do love original work. Yeah. No, I think that especially artists whose job revolves around commissions, I think that you should do something that fills your cup, that is not, that there's no pressure to sell it. If you sell it, great. I mean, that's so validating, and also, I mean, rewarding in more ways than one, but you're able to stretch your muscles, and you're able to create little, I don't know, I do like those like little still lives, for me, it's like plein air paint. It's just like a little gem, something that you're proud of, something that you made. And then if somebody buys it, great. But, I keep all mine. I keep a lot of my plein air paintings and frame them and put them on the wall. And, and it's very rewarding to squeeze those in sometimes.
Yes. Do you hang your paintings all over your house?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. You do?
Yeah. Well, I don't have, okay. I hang the ones that I'm especially proud of, and I will I'll go get them framed. My framer is like, "What you got for me today?"
Yeah.
And then, but I have
cool
a lot
that
of.
You have a framer.
Well, it's the art supply store that is in Metairie that's close to my house. They have a frame shop in the back, and I've spent all my money there and all my time, and so now I have
frames are important.
Oh my gosh, yes, they do. I framed yours there. I don't know. I love a frame, and I always recommend that people get their art framed. But I do a lot of plein air paintings on little 1/8 inch deep birch panels. It's very inexpensive and lightweight.
I love panel painting.
Oh, me too. I really prefer that over canvas these days.
But how do you hang them?
I frame them. So
you still can frame them? Okay.
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm gonna go pull one off the wall. Nobody move.
Please do.
Okay, so this is one I did a couple in Paris a couple of years ago, and this one is like a little 5x8.
That's beautiful.
You see it?
I love the gold and the black.
It's probably gonna blur out. Yeah, so we've picked out, and this is what the back looks like. I mean, it's professionally framed, and so
it looks great.
It's like a little panel. And I did
I'm gonna do it. You've convinced me.
Yeah. And then, these are like $150 each. So they're really pricey. So I can only frame like one or two at a time. Otherwise they're stacked up. I like lay them out and let them dry. And then when they're dry, I varnish them. And then I kind of pick and choose which ones I want to frame. And then I'll give them away as gifts to like family members and people I really, really like. And then I'll sell them. I have a friend who's he bought a building in New Orleans, and he's opening a gallery. And every now and then he'll say, "What do you have? I have somebody interested in this or that," and I'll pull them off the wall and sell them. So, but I'm not really known for my original work. So if I did an original collection, it probably wouldn't sell out. And that's okay. I may sell like one or two, but it
might
not that kind of demand. Well, maybe. I
know. I know. I feel like I struggled to get like an audience. So I was having fun making them, but I was like, well, I don't know how much is coming of this.
Yeah.
It's nice to do live painting, and then it makes me feel like I'm allowed to, still do that too. And hoping one day just the exposure from live painting will help me like move that forward too. But we'll see. I'd like to do both.
That would be, you mentioned earlier, like, oh, maybe when I'm an 80-year-old lady, I can just paint. And that's my dream.
We can get studios next to each other.
Yeah, that's my retirement plan is to just paint with no. And the silly thing is, we probably could totally do that now. Just paint what we want to paint.
I know.
But it is nice to when you have the bills and when your family is growing and you've got like tuition coming up, and oh my God, the cost of berries for these toddlers. It's so expensive.
I know. The berries are out of control.
The berries, man. And it's just really nice to be able to contribute. And then, it's also fulfilling to have people very happy to hire you to paint at their wedding. I mean, the live wedding painting has been the best job in the world for me. So I'm really enjoying it. How many weddings do you try to take a year?
I mean, I feel like I've never, I was laughing on it because I feel like I've listened to a few of your episodes. And you said 30 was like scaling back. And I think 30 was like my biggest year. And that was like all I could manage to scrounge up.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's a lot.
I think maybe it felt like a lot. So I'm like, I'm over here like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine that being scaling back. The competitive part of me is like, I just want to get as many as I can. But 30 seems to be, where I'm at. Both in just interest in booking. I feel like I don't really get more than that, even if I tried. And then also I have to sit back and be like, I need to kill the motor. Like, do I even want to do more than 30? Probably not. Because, my kids are starting to get older and they're going to be in sports. They got recitals and I want to like hang out with my family at some point on the weekend. And I went through a phase because I relocated a year into my business, where I was traveling a lot because I had booked a whole year of weddings out of state.
Yeah.
So I ate the cost of all those because I thought about it and I was like, well, I'm not going to charge everybody because I moved. And I didn't want to cancel them either. So I was gone like all the time when we moved to New Hampshire. And I just feel like that was a lot. So I'm finally getting more Northeast weddings and stuff that's closer to me, which is nice. I don't have to be like flying everywhere because flying for painting is like a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
I feel you.
Thank goodness I'm trying to do
a little bit less too. Wait, no, tell us about that box.
I messaged my dad. I was like, Dad, you could retire and start your own box business. And he was like, I don't really want to do it.
Yeah, so
but he made this really cool box.
Tell us
like
There's
how
that works.
Really out there, I feel like, because I kind of, when we moved, I sat there and I was like, how would I even do this? I didn't really know about Genie Canvas or anything like that. And most of my weddings were in Maryland, which I still knew a lot of people. So I was like, maybe they could just ship it home to me. And then my dad was like, well, why don't you just do this, that, and the other? And I was like, well, I don't know how to make anything out of wood. So that's going to be you. But him and my uncle, who was also good with that stuff, used to like install windows for a living and stuff like that. They're good with woodworking and stuff. He's an engineer and they made me 2 boxes. The first one is just for one painting, and then my other one holds 2, and it just kind of suspends they screw into a plexiglass plate and slide in, so it just like holds it suspended in there, which is crazy. It's very heavy to carry around the airport, but it allowed me to keep my business going through that whole phase of my life. So that was kind of saved me, although they are in rough shape because TSA did not like those boxes. And they were, ripping them open and throwing them around and stuff like that. But yeah, if anyone's good with woodworking, feel free to make one. They worked out. I did try Genie Canvas once. It was stressful, but I did it. I don't know if you've ever used them before. I did it for like a 30 by 40. It was interesting. I think I prefer just using regular canvas, but
I haven't used that, but I did build, in college, they teach you how to build a canvas. Thank goodness. And that's a skill
they do in college. I mean, in college, sorry.
Yeah,
I was thinking
like
high school. I was like, where did you go to Gotcha.
No, I had a class at LSU and he was like, today we're going to make our own canvases. And everybody was like, what? Why?
That's cool.
And we did it one time. I mean, we had one lesson and that is a skill I have used a couple of times, and I'm glad I know how to make a canvas. But yeah, that is a lot of work. It's a hassle, man. And then when you're bringing them back, awful. It's like,
exhausting.
Yeah, and then
it's
you're
great
like
to paint on.
Stressed out.
Yeah.
Because you have this wet finished painting that you don't want to have to redo. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But they make them back. I know my travel situation is very like I feel good about it, but it is very like a box with foam inside of a bag with foam, and a lot of
Yeah.
cushion.
Yeah. You did that massive. You've done some really big paintings that were like travel ones, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah,
not.
this little situation
I
that I
wonder.
have is it can hold up to 30 by 40. And then I did one that
Yes.
was 48 by 60, which was
I know. How was that?
out of this
I
world.
loved
That's
that painting. I
that's the one I
loved
had
that
to
painting.
build.
I saw
So,
it.
dude, I loved it
Came
too.
out
It
so
was
good.
fun to make. I actually painted. I
Yeah.
finished by the end of the night. It was like 7 hours, and then none of the people like had faces, and so I was trying to. At that time, I was trying to. There were all these portraits, and then I finished it like a day after, within a day. But
It
no,
was more landscapey,
it
right?
was
It
more
was like the
landscapey. It was in the mountains in
yes, I
Estes
remember
Park.
it. I
Yeah,
loved it.
I'm so glad it was memorable for you. It was memorable for me. This is the one that I had to build. So I was like, how
Oh
on
my
earth?
gosh,
It
that's
was
crazy.
up in the mountains in Estes Park in Colorado. And it was like a 3-hour drive from the airport. And I'm like, a 48 by
Yes.
60 canvas, I'm going to have to rent a van or something to like, you can't put that in a car. And I was like, okay, what on earth am I going to do? So then I was like, I decided to stretch the canvas. I stretched the canvas and gessoed it here. And then I unstretched
Mm-hmm.
it, broke down all the bars, and then I rolled it up and then made this like box. It was like a rug. In essence, it looked like I was shipping a rug. And I shipped the canvas and all the materials, the stretcher bars, I packaged everything up and I shipped it to the venue like two
Mm-hmm.
days before. And so it arrived 2 days before I was supposed to arrive. And so when when it was there, they held on to it for me, and that was great. And then I got to the venue an extra hour early, and I was like rolling up my sleeves. I'm like, okay, I'm about to build this canvas. And I built the canvas, and held it held all night. And then after I finished it, in the cabin, like the whatever cabin I stayed at, over the next couple of days, I finished it and then unstretched it. I was doing acrylic at that time. I don't know if I could have done this with oils. I would have had to um I don't know. I maybe would have had to put a canvas on top and roll it up like that. I don't know, but I did this in acrylic. I rolled it, I unstretched it, packaged it up the same way. I didn't have to ship it, but the clients lived in California. And so I was like, how am I going to get it to you guys? And luckily enough, the bride's mother lived outside of Denver. So I actually
Oh.
drove an hour out of the way to her house and I brought it to her. And then she got it to them somehow. I think that maybe she drove to their house. I don't know, that it wasn't my responsibility anymore. But yeah, that was that story. And that was a big
Wow.
one. It was fun though. And I'm still using cheap art supplies. Look, you don't have to tell me, but if you want to level up, you have to use better supplies. Come on, let's invest a little. I've been using Rosemary and Company for my paintbrushes for the past 5 years or so, and I have never thrown away one of these brushes. The quality is unmatched, and they're like reasonably priced. I hate to say it, but they're the best. So I love a long handled paintbrush. Okay. I love a hog hair or an ivory, which is kind of a mixed bristle hair. And Rosemary and Company, they have like so many options. So I would check them out. The website is www.rosemaryandco.com. That's Rosemary spelled Rosemary and co.com. Or you can just click the link in my show notes and it'll take you directly to my personal wish list. It's all the brushes that I use and recommend. So check them out and thank me later. That was the
Yes.
biggest canvas I've ever painted on. Do you like to paint on
Yeah.
what is your comfort zone for canvas size?
I like big, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm better at small ones. But I have more fun with big ones. If it's a portrait, I prefer it to be big,
Yeah.
especially. I agree with I saw that you took out your smaller paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad because I know it's a budgetary it's a budget thing, like
Mm-hmm.
getting a smaller painting. But sometimes I think one time I like gifted a larger painting to somebody just because I was like, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make it bigger. Because they wanted the bigger one and then they came back and they changed it because they didn't have as much money as they thought to put towards it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I think we should just stick with it. and I'll, but sometimes I just feel like it's too cramped in such a small canvas if you want, especially if the person wants a certain amount of detail. It's just kind of like, yeah, you feel too restricted. So I definitely like working bigger. Yeah. Especially live, you just kind of are like, you don't have to like think about it as much. You're getting it covered. You almost paint faster.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like you think more in terms of coverage. Cover this area. Like when you're like, if you were to do an 18 by 24, you would work in smaller pockets, and then you tend to hold your brush a little bit more controlled, and then you like do this and kind of scrunch up and get and then before you know it, you're like spending an hour working on this one. Oh yeah, I feel I can't do small canvases. Even in the studio, I'm like constantly pushing myself back and stepping away, and like I try to hold my brush like all far out on the handle, and lessen the control and the tightness of the brush marks, because you can make it you can control a lot with like an extended arm, and even on a small painting. And I don't know, it's all like, it's the same thing you were talking about earlier. Like painting will always be a challenge, and it'll always be fun. And so whether it's a big canvas or a smaller one, I don't know, I think it's fun. Do you have an original collection in mind that you're like kind of excited to do, or you're kind of wrapping that up because we're nearing the end of winter?
Realistically, if I did something this year, it'd be just small studies, probably just to like dip my toe in or something. But I actually was having a lot of fun with my still lives last year. It's fun to like coordinate. I don't really like this part of it. I like to just not think about it and just paint something. So I'm not really one of those people who's gonna like painstakingly make a still life. But I had fun. You can like control the colors in it and like kind of just make some cool shadows, and then find one spot you're excited about and get to it. I do live near a lake, which I like painting that a lot. But I feel like it's more a question if I want to work from photos. I went on a big trip to Colorado with my husband last summer, and I took so many photos. And I wish I had just like gone there on a painting trip too, and then I could just do it from life. Because now I'm trying to decide if I even want to try to paint any of them, or if it's just going to bum me out.
Try a small one.
Because I remember what it's like to see it in person, and I'm like, I think painting these might just not come out the way that I think that it will. Which is why I think I was telling you earlier, I just want to like go on a trip or like a workshop and just make a bunch of paintings out in the wild.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I like that too. We went in when I was in Paris. I actually, Chris came with me, and we ran through the south of France, and it was our first big like trip
that sounds amazing.
together. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing. And it was fast. Like we went from Marseille all the way back up to Paris, like in 5 days. And we saw a lot of museums, and we ate a lot of good food, but I didn't stop to paint. And I was in Paris for an artist retreat, which was wonderful. And I did 4 little paintings. So I actually was able to stop and paint for an hour 4 times with other artists. So I love that. Recommend that. I want to do that again. But I remember thinking, I regret not making a point, because he's not a painter and he's not a stop and sit still kind of guy. And so I regret not like asking him to I regret not telling him, hey, it's a priority that I do this little painting, because it's so I really love the process. I love it, and I wish I would have done it. And so when I got back, I told him, I said, the next trip we go on, it's really important that I bring my stuff and I stop and I paint something because it's a memory of the trip. It's just it. And so then the last year we went to Greece, and when we went, he was like,
oh my gosh,
when are you gonna? I got up before sunrise and painted the side of Santorini or whatever, like the mountainside. And
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
with the sun. I'm not a morning person, but I remember like 5 a.m. I was like, yee, I get to paint this. And then he got,
Yeah.
and then there was a point we went to another island and he was like, okay, we got to get to the airport. Are you going to paint? Like, what you going to do? So he was
Get it in the schedule.
Yeah. But if I wouldn't have told him, if I wouldn't have boohooed about it and told him it was a priority, he would not, it wouldn't have been, he wouldn't have thought about it. And so I try to get like one little, if it's conducive to the trip, I try to get one little painting in because it makes me so happy. And then I, get to look at him every day. Oh, I love it. Okay, wait, I have another question about, it's a crossover between your original work and your wedding paintings.
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier in the conversation that you really love kind of exploring like lost lines and, lost focus and found focus and things like that. Do you, other than, of course, the challenge of creating the painting, do you try to kind of have fun with shadow tones or like any elements of like a landscape or like there's a painting on the wall behind you that's inside of a church, a lot of those straight crisp lines and the dramatic lighting, is there anything that you kind of lean into in a way that you pull from the inspiration in the studio and you kind of plug that into the live painting process?
With architecture, not as much, just because architecture is like my kryptonite. I feel like it is like, I'm not a huge straight line person. So I feel like I feel like one crooked line in a church painting can just throw off the whole painting.
Yeah.
So I try to keep pretty true to like,
we're not losing those
I feel
lines.
like by the time I'm done getting all the lines to like make sense, I'm just like, I'm not freaking touching this thing.
Yeah.
I gotta be done here. But that is what it is. But yeah, I've taken 2 workshops in the last couple of years with some of my favorite artists. I don't know if you know who Zoe Frank is. But she's a figurative artist and she does everything. And then Ed Pravey, they do a lot of like, it's very realistic, but it's also, they play a lot with color and kind of like a sense of time passing within the painting. And with that comes a lot of like choosing what to bring in and leave out, and they add a little bit of abstraction. And I really love doing stuff like that. I try not to get too playful with live paintings because it's not my original work. Like people are, I don't know how crazy people want me to get. It is. But it's, I understand what they're coming to me for. So I'm not going to be like doing wacky things, but I like and I feel like, especially with live painting, like feeling a sense of time passing within a singular moment that you're painting is like kind of what it's about, which is why I like keeping, especially in the studio, you're working from a photo, or I take a lot of videos because I like that better.
Me too.
It's just more fluid, I think. You get kind of stuck in a photo and then all of a sudden I've painted a whole crowd off one photo and I'm like, what am I doing? This doesn't even, So I just feel like I try to keep elements of a bunch of different photos and videos and leave some things unfinished and try to make it feel like some of the shadows might not all line up with the right time of day, but I feel like that almost makes it does something weird or unintentional to your brain that I feel like you probably wouldn't notice when you're looking at a painting, but it just adds to the live paintingness of it. But I'll play up a shadow. Shadows are the best.
Yeah.
Nice saturated shadow. I feel like that's the most things that I comment on other paintings are about their shadows.
Yeah.
I love your shadow.
You really have a knack for capturing light, like direct light, and then that successful shadow, man, because you have to put it in. Like it's not a photo. You're not just like copying what's there. You have to actually make those decisions and make the tonal decisions and make the warmth and coolness decisions, and how It's just really successfully done. Okay. And I'm just a fan. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Switching gears.
More.
Yeah. Right. Switching gears.
Yeah.
You are a beautiful mother of 2. You have 2 kids.
Yes.
And do you work, like, is your studio in your home?
Yes. This is my home. This is my first studio with windows. So that's been,
oh my gosh.
I feel like I've
so
made
now your
it.
mental health is like much better.
Oh, no, wait, no, sorry. I did have a window in my old house, but it was also a guest bedroom. So this is just a studio, which is nice.
That feels like
an
upgrade.
Clean up when people visit, or it's hard to share a space like a bed with oil paints.
Oh my God.
It's not really, doesn't really gel together.
No, or like a carpet or like any, 100%. So how is your, how are your days? How are you balancing?
That's a good question.
Because this is the composed artist, and with the goal of sharing stories.
I must be on the wrong podcast.
Right? I was about to say, the goal is to share stories of how we're trying, we're aiming for this. This is a goal. This is a pipe dream. But how are you doing it, girl? How are you traveling and working from the studio and momming it up?
I mean, that's why I moved to New Hampshire. Not the main reason, but we have both sets of parents here. Well, my husband's parents are here probably half time. They visit his sister in Texas too. But so they watch my kids like at least once a week for an afternoon at the very least, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's nice to work during the day. But mostly I work at night, which is not ideal. After 8 o'clock. So I have a hard time hyping myself up to do work a lot of the time. I'll go through, I feel like this is very like collegey of me, but I'll stay up until 3 a.m, like every day for a week. I'm in like a hot streak. I know what I'm doing. I'm on a roll. And then I am in a slump where I like can't paint for, another week after.
Yeah.
So I feel like the biggest thing that I've tried to learn, and I've told you I'm not good with schedules. I've tried to be like, these days I'm going to paint, and these days I'm going to do administrative work. That's and on this day I'm going to rest. And I don't even think I made it a week when I tried to do that. It's like I just was never in the mood to do what I had planned for myself that day.
Yeah.
So I feel like I just try to do something. And like, I feel like today was the first day I've painted in 2 weeks, just because I just was tired. I was like burnt out. And so every day I was like, well, at the very least, I'm going to like work on my website, or I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to answer these emails, do something. So and I've also learned that if I try to paint when I'm not in the mood, I do more damage than I do good. And then it was just a waste.
If I feel like I don't want to be here, then I don't.
Yeah, it bad.
Shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I end up just messing something up, and then I spend another 2 hours fixing it. Then I end up back where I was. And I'm like, well, that was not worth it. So, but yeah, my son is only 3, so he is home with me most of the time. My daughter's in kindergarten this year, so she's gone until 2:30 every day. And then everyone's here in the afternoon. Yeah. But but it's hard because I love spending time with them, and I feel like now that my daughter's in kindergarten, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gone all the time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad about it. And my son's in preschool, so he's gone for 2 hours twice a week, which isn't really anything, but
it's enough.
Next year he's going to be, well, it's funny. I moved here for help, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be having my parents watch the kids like 3 days a week, and I'm going to get all this stuff done. And then every day I'm like, well, I kind of want to hang out with them now.
I can't.
So I'm not utilizing it as much as I thought I would. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have a job. I'm treating it like I don't have a job, but I have a full-time job. And I'm like squeezing in at night. And I'm like, I got to get over myself. Like, I have to work. So
yeah, I can't. I mean, everybody has to leave the house, thank goodness. And we've got daycares. And I think if I did less things, then I could squeeze it in with
you're doing
little
so
ones
many
too.
things.
I do so many things.
It's wild.
But like if I have a deadline or like
I'm
one of my kids is
impressed.
sick, or if there's something that happens and it's like, oh no, hold on, I do have actually something really important that I need to finish. But also my baby needs me, like she's home. Then I'll call my mom, but I can't. And she lives an hour away, and she'll come in and help. But when she's here, I can't. It's not like she can come and babysit and I can ignore her. I want to visit. I want to hang out with, like, it's a party. I have FOMO bad. So it's I feel you there. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Do you have any? I mean, I see you, and we're all doing it. We're all doing the same thing. But I mean, you got to be in it. You have to kind of embrace the challenge of being pulled in two different directions, because they're only little ones. Like your paintings that'll always be there. And they won't, like the 5-year, my oldest is in kindergarten too. And I'm like, yeah, she's not a baby anymore. So, part of that. Yeah, I get it. Do you have any advice for anybody based on, like, is there any kind of like trick you've learned or thing you've done that helps?
Wish there was a trick. I just feel like giving yourself grace is the most important thing, and remembering your priorities. And I just feel like having kids just helps you prioritize a lot better. Just pick the things that are important to you and get rid of the rest and put your energy towards that. But just know that there's I feel like social media is so deceiving. Like, I have such unproductive months, and I just have to be like, you know what? This is what it is. And I feel like this line of work is so not on a normal schedule to begin with. So it's just how it's going to go. And artists are fairly emotional people. Like, it's not, I don't know. I just feel like I spend so much time beating myself. Like, why didn't I paint today? I didn't paint today.
Yeah.
Or I'll be in a slump where my paintings just doesn't look good and then I get bummed about it and I don't want to work at all. I get really dramatic.
Yeah.
And then I guess the only comfort is that it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And it'll go away. And force yourself to do something. And I think as long as you don't do nothing, because I've also done that, and then I just end up, falling out of it altogether. So I feel like just keep the ball rolling, even if it's rolling really, 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 really slow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. That's really good. I find that when I put something off, procrastinate, the more time that goes by, the more outrageously annoyed with the task I am. And then I'm like, I've got it. It's like it weighs so heavily. And then when you actually do it, it takes no time at all. And then you're like, oh my God, I caused myself so much stress for nothing. I don't know.
Or I'm a big, I like consuming things. Like, I love having snacks. I like having wine. I like having coffee. So I try to make it exciting for myself. So I give myself a prize.
That's probably really conducive.
We're going to go do this thing you don't like, and you can have a glass of wine and put on a nice movie that you like and get it done. And then to like baby myself into it. Well, then once I'm there, I'm like, I'm happy I'm here. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then because you work in the evenings a lot, like after kids go to bed, after the bedtime, I'm exhausted. And so to start again, I need a glass of wine or some sort of treat.
Yeah.
Like, here's some chips and dip.
So many treats.
We're just like the toddlers. We need treats to do anything.
I know.
Oh my God, I love it.
It's hard. I see my husband on the couch and I'm like, that looks really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever see your husband?
I have to go over here. No.
Yeah.
I know. That's probably hard. That's hard too. It's hard to, I feel like it's like the kids that are at the top business. And then he always ends up being there. And he's over in the corner like, hi.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without him, obviously. So
is he creative in any way?
He took a chance on me. No.
Yeah.
Not with art.
Mine either.
Although, he gives it a try. My daughter's super into drawing, and he's made some some pieces of note, I think, while crafting with her.
That's hilarious.
He tries.
Chris too.
Yeah.
He'll draw. She'll say, "Draw a horse," and he's like, "Okay," and he'll draw something, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dang, babe, that actually look at that.
Stop trying to take my job." Yeah.
But like
stay in your lane.
The like innate desire to create and the innate interest in the world and seeing color and like the things that make us an artist, like on the inside, they don't have. And so, Chris gets the business stuff. And so a lot of times I have to frame, this is a project I'm working on for this goal, which will help us this way. And so then he's like, okay, I get why you have to work late. But if I'm like, oh, I just really want to paint, he'll be like, but what about us? So, finding that common ground. But that's great that he's supportive. Yeah. It's so necessary.
And he is also business minded, which is, I need that. If he wasn't there, I'd probably still be charging $1,000.
Yeah.
I don't like charging money.
It's so uncomfortable.
Like, drive up those prices. Come on, let's go. And I'm like, but they're so, I don't want to, and he's like, it's not about making friends. Like it kind of is. Oh man.
That's also very helpful. Hard. Yeah, I feel you.
I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to just want people to have their perfect wedding.
Please them with the paintings. Because when they want to hire you, they'll hire you either way. I love it.
I know. That's what he always says. Like, they can say no. I'm like, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. This business is fun. It's very emotionally driven. Oh my gosh. I'm so thankful that you came in and told your story and shared. I really, really wanted to talk to you about the act of creating the work and like what your thought process went into that. So I'm really grateful to you for sharing those things. A lot of people that listen to the show are artists, hopefully. And so I would love to ask if you have any advice for artists who are either entering this space as a live wedding painter, or maybe they've been in it, they've been promoting themselves as a live wedding painter, but maybe they're like they plateaued or stalled creatively. You have any advice?
I feel like I only have the same advice as everyone else, which is to just keep doing it. I feel like my climb has been very slow. Like it's easy to see people, and some people do just like go straight to the top really fast. But I mean, I think about how long I graduated college in 2013 from art school, and it's been over 10 years, and I'm finally now, I have a business and I am doing it, but don't get discouraged by it. I feel like that's the minority. It takes a long time, and there's going to be a lot of meandering paths. I've had so many jobs and so many different things happen, and I just feel like it's easy to get discouraged. I feel like, just keep working. No one's going to see you and notice you if you're not making anything.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it and do stuff that you like, because I feel like for so long I was doing what I just thought would make money, and it's like it had the opposite effect. People can see when you love it, and it ends up coming out better.
Yeah.
So don't necessarily follow the rules. Like I told you before, I got stuck in a rut when I first started live painting. I was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to do acrylic. I'm supposed to finish that night. I'm supposed to do all this stuff. And it's like, I own my own business. I don't have to do anything.
I don't have to listen.
Like, why am I like focusing on things other people are doing? I mean, every artist is different. You have to figure out what works for you. And that's what makes you unique and makes you stand out against other people. I feel like that's hard to do, obviously, but I don't know. It's hard. It's discouraging. So I feel like just don't compare yourself to others. Just keep doing what brings you joy, and the people will eventually find you, I guess.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm hoping for myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's very true. That's true. We all need to hear that, because you sit alone in your studio when really, like you and I are sitting here together now, but usually you're sitting alone in your studio and it feels very slow or like dead, like no momentum and nothing sold today. I didn't like earn any money today. And it feels that way. And that can feel very heavy, like this pressure, this feeling of like, oh, I'm failing. But, you know, when you, that we, having been doing this for a few years, have the gift of time. Like we can look back at the last year and see that all of those individual days that we were quietly doing one task at a time, whatever, they added up to momentum. And when you're just getting started, you don't see that yet. And so it's like, trust the process and just keep going. Really good advice. Thank you. Where can people see your original work and follow you and see your wedding paintings and know what I'm talking about with her like very unique painting style? Like, go check her out. Where can they see you?
Wow. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok at Jessi Laurence Art Studio. That's another thing that I would suggest is picking a branding name that's easy to remember, because mine was by the time I knew that, it was too late.
Yeah.
But mine's Jessi Laurence Art Studio, and then jlaurenceart.com. I've got all my stuff up there. TikTok I'm still learning how to use, so I'm older, but I'm doing my best. So
yeah, and
feel free to support me in that endeavor.
Lauren, yeah, go watch her on TikTok. She's making these reels. She's doing dances. No, I'm kidding. She's not doing that. I'm not doing that.
I wish.
Lawrence, can you spell Lawrence? Because there's a couple ways to spell Lawrence.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it's LAURENCE.
Jessi Laurence.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
And there's a picture of me on it just to help you figure out if you're there or not.
It's me. Oh, that's awesome. Yes. You are so cool. Thank you so much for coming to hang out and being on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Everybody go check out Jessi's work and cheer her on her journey. And thank you so much for being here. You're the best.
Of course.
Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.